going further in college, going into classic studies. This is a pivotal time for him. He was going to San Francisco to go up there to study, and that's where he went. That's why he's not here. I asked him, by the way, whether I could use this dream for tonight. He said yes. Well, then where's the problem? Remember, we said, hey, there are some dreams, these transcendent, transpersonal dreams that go beyond the personal scope of a person's own existence and penetrate into the some world of beyond, and yet it can come back and open up the most fundamental problem a person may have. And that doesn't have to be necessarily confined only to the person. It can be a more general problem. So, what shall we say? Well, he was encouraged to talk some more, and he recognized that D, the person here, also has a very great interest in all of this, and that he did want to share it. I want to examine something a little more closely. Right? That's what he said. But then he left. Then he left. He knew that this was disguised. This experience was disguised. I want to examine something. He didn't disclose at that moment that what he wanted to examine was this very experience and talk about it and share it so he could then examine it more closely with her, since she happens to be also a very insightful woman and interested in the same kinds of subjects. So therefore, what did he do? I got up and left. But this is a kind of invitation, isn't it? It was only when he talked about the dream that he then disclosed that what that meant, and what he meant to communicate was he wanted to examine this with her. And then couldn't. Left. So here's a very transpersonal experience, goes beyond personal boundaries. Very significant, obviously, to have it. It tells you something fundamental about existence. He wanted to share it to someone who was very important to him, someone he may marry. Wanted to share it with her, but then got up and went off by himself. Is that a problem? Since when he reflected and told us, in terms of the dream, he had to reflect more about the dream, he did mean to suggest to her that I want to examine this experience not a little more closely, but as completely as I can with you. But then he left. Well, we asked him, what would it be like? What would it be like? And remember from last week, we said dreams deal with metaphors and similes. And we said that every figure in the dream is a metaphor for something. And when you treat the dream episode or scene as a simile, you can get a state of mind. So therefore, it was natural that I would ask at this point, what was it like when you knew you wanted to share something with her that was very significant to you, that instead you got up and you left? I said, so at that moment, what was it like? So he described in a bunch of nice words what it was like. And so I said, that's very interesting. Could you tell us when you experienced that most recently? And he said that he had been with the family together, with Dee. They were together with his family. And it was very clear to the family, since they have a religion, a modern religion, I don't know whether you're familiar with it. They hit small white balls and run after them. It's a religion. Tennis. They wear their white clothes, it's very proper, and they go every time and they bow before it's a whole ritual, you know, whole involvement. It's so, then he related, he said, you know, there I am, I'm going to now go up to San Francisco with this woman. And that was a major breakthrough for him, to have a girlfriend that he was willing to live with and perhaps marry and make this plunge into human relationships. But he couldn't tell them about her, even though she was there. He couldn't say anything. And he made this great remark. He said, now, he is a very skilled tennis player. The whole family are into tennis. And he said, I'll tell you, he said, what it reminds me of. He said, I have this great work I have to get into in Greek, in classic Greek. He said, I have to do the work. I had everything prepared that night. But then I went over to the TV and I turned on the television to watch the major tennis matches that were just going on this weekend, the U.S. Open. And he said, I could watch it, I could study it. He said, I knew every single time they did it right, when they did it wrong, why they did it right, why they did it wrong. He's one of these people who are quite proficient in tennis. The whole family is. He said, I don't know. He said, I knew I had this work over there. He said, but here I was doing this. And I said, well, isn't it true, though, that you are using your mind in a very skilled manner, making many, many distinctions? He said, yeah. He said, I'm making many distinctions. He said, I'm making all kinds of judgments. See, those kind of judgments, had he made it in his study, he would have gained insights into the work he's doing. So therefore, you know, just wait for him to come to the conclusion, and he did. He said, my dad came up to me, he said, quite recently, I remember this, and he said, you know, if you give up tennis, we won't have anything to talk about. That's the only way he related with his son on the tennis courts. It's the only thing they talked about. It's the centerpiece of their home. That's why I jokingly called it a religion. It has that aspect. And therefore, he had to leave something that was very important to him, that was a major, he needs this to fulfill his academic goals. He has to get in these 4 or 5 weeks and do this project. He's not doing it. He's watching TV in the U.S. Open. Right? He walked away from it. He really got involved in the Greek. He loved it. He couldn't go back to it. He had to leave it. Well then, look here. The dream master, giving him this dream, raised the whole thing, didn't it? Took the idea of learning classic Greek and applying it to this project he had, and raised it as the most meaningful